Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Doctors Football Channel. This is our new Premier League show. We're going to call it the Money League, the richest soccer league in the world, and we're going to talk about all the matchups, injuries, and betting, and eventually bring in some fantasy aspects. And of course, the mid-season transfer market is going to hit soon. And then we're going to, as the season goes, we'll talk more about the transfer league, and Dr. Atanda would help us analyze the injuries. And as always, joining us now is R.L. Mills. He's talking from Virginia. How are you, Mills?
I am good. How are you doing, Rahul? Everything
I'm
is great. Hey, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa. Hello and
Happy Hanukkah.
and happy
there you go.
Hanukkah. Happy
Everyone.
holidays.
There you
Everyone.
go. Everyone's going to be happy at this time. And
And
joining us now is also a super awesome sports doctor. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Dr. Atanda, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Rahul, and thanks, RL, for having me here. I'm a sports medicine orthopedic surgeon. Family's originally from Ghana, so we're huge soccer fans. I have a lot to bring to the table, a lot to talk about.
Let's go.
So I'm very excited to be here.
Let's go. Okay, let's go. So, like I said, this is the Money League. We're going to talk about EPL and get all the information about EPL. And let's start with some of the main matchups this week. This is my favorite game of the week, so we're going to start with that. Tottenham versus Brentford. I think it's going to be an amazing game. I think it's closer than people think. Brentford is right now 10th in the league, and Tottenham is like 4th, so for a top 10 matchup. Mills, what are the injury updates for this matchup?
Okay, there's a lot of key injuries, especially in this game, and the biggest one is the striker for Tottenham, Richarlison. We saw him play with Brazil in the World Cup. He actually suffered a grade 2 hamstring tear. He will be out for at least 3 weeks, possibly even longer. So he doesn't look to feature in this matchup. Also, Jed Spence, the defender, and Oliver Skip, they both have flu-like symptoms. They are doubtful to play in this match for Tottenham. And also Rodrigo Bittencourt, he will miss this game because he has a red card. Now for Brentford, they also are pretty banged up, and they have Shadon Baptiste, the midfielder. He's dealing with a muscular strain. He will be out for a couple of weeks. Christophe Aguerd, he has a knee sprain. He will be back in early January, and both midfielders Aaron Hickey and Thomas Strakowska, apologies. They both have ankle sprains, and they will be out. Actually, Aaron Hickey has a high ankle sprain, and they will be out until early January.
Okay, so Dr. Atanda, I know there's a lot of injuries, but I'm going to start with the main player people want to know. How is Harry Kane doing? He had kind of ankle injury during the World Cup. So how is he looking? His prop for goal is pretty high. Everyone's expecting to score this week. So thoughts on Harry Kane, and then we can lead on to other injuries for Tottenham and Brentford.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's obviously the go-to guy. He's going to give it all he's got if he can be out there. I don't know the exact specifics of his ankle injury, but, I think he should be able to start and give it a go at his position, at his level. He gets knocked around. He's always in the box, as you know. So having an ankle knock or an ankle injury can be very, very tough. I think he'll probably be able to go the whole game. I don't think he'll be limited in terms of minutes. He may be limited in terms of his aggression and the way he's attacking the ball, though.
Okay, and a couple of other injuries. Richarlison, who's apparently going to miss like a couple of months. How is his recovery going to look like? Can Tottenham expect a good push towards the end of the season, or is he going to be kind of so-so this season, and maybe next season he steps up?
No, I think he'll be able to come back. I mean, it's only it's end of December, going to be in January soon. Grade 2 hamstring tears, as we all know, are very, very nagging injuries. I don't think he needs surgery per se, but you would expect him to be out at least a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. So I would expect him back somewhere around March-ish when they're making that late push for the title. But I definitely think it'll be something that he'll be able to recover this season from.
Okay, and everyone's had a break. A lot of players played in the World Cup. And this is probably a general question for the whole league. So Boxing Day, the big intro to the league again, kind of reopening. Is the 1 month gap for some players going to make a big difference? I know not everyone played in the World Cup, and a lot of top players are not in top countries. Like Erling Haaland from Man City, like he plays for Norway. Like they're not going to make the World Cup anytime soon. So like, does the 1 month to 1.5 month gap like make a difference in the performance of like the general league like players, including the top players?
Yeah, I mean, this has been, the debate going on, with having the World Cup in mid-season. As you
Yeah.
know, it's typically in the summer. Guys have time off. Even after the World Cup, they have a little bit of time off before they start again. And I think there's two camps. And I think the debate is still out as to who is exactly right. I mean, it's nice to have, 4 weeks off in the mid-season. People can kind of nurse like little ailing injuries. But then people feel like, well, I'm in form, I'm moving, I'm progressing, and then bam, everything shuts down because the World Cup's going on. For those people that didn't play in the World Cup, I mean, there was a few friendlies here and there, but I think it's actually to their detriment. As long as you were able to play in the World Cup, you didn't sustain a big injury. I do think it's in your favor just to kind of keep the ball rolling, keep that form moving, and then you just come back right after Boxing Day and just kind of hit things in stride. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it actually plays out. This is the first time in a long time that the World Cup obviously has disrupted
Yep.
mid-season like this.
Yep, that's kind of unique. Like I think like the jury is up there, and I don't think we'll ever have a December World Cup. I think this is like a one and done situation.
One and done, thank God.
Yep. I get it. Like we're not going into the moral aspects of it, but I think it's a one and done. Okay, so talking about friendlies, there was a lot of friendlies played, and we had one major injury for Chelsea. So Chelsea play Bournemouth this week. I know Armando Broya is probably has a big injury. Any other updates for Chelsea and Bournemouth?
Armando, as we all know, Armando Broya, he tore his ACL on that one. It looked like a very, very nasty injury. He had successful surgery. Of course, he's not going to feature. He will be out for a while, and they said his return table is looked like late August. That's the return for him. Also for Chelsea, Mason Mount, he's doubtful to play because he has a calf injury. Cesar, I cannot.
Azpilicueta. There you go. It's a tongue twister.
He's doubtful with a calf strain. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, he has a calf strain as well. He will be out for a couple of weeks. Benjamin Chilwell, he has a hamstring injury. He will be out for a few weeks as well too. Kepa Ariza Balaga has a foot injury. No details about the foot injury, but he is doubtful to play. And the big one, N'Golo Kante from the French national team, he has a hamstring strain. He will be out until late February. He doesn't look to feature. And Wesley Fofana may have re-injured the MCL sprain that he had already been, because he had been recovering from a grade 2 MCL sprain, and he may have re-injured it and he looks to be out for a while too.
Okay. So Dr. Adanda, like a lot of like strain, like I know there's like different grades. Can you like explain to the audience like what's the timeline, like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, like what it means? And especially for soccer, it's different. I think like a lot of players like to play with injury. And how does that work?
Yeah, so we typically grade things 1 through 3, as you mentioned. I mean, your grade 1 tears are going to be kind of like stretch injuries where the fibers of the muscle are still in contact with one another. Your grade 2 injuries are going to be where they kind of separate and pull apart, probably less than a centimeter. And your grade 3 injuries are going to be much wider apart, much more higher percentage of the muscle that's been torn. Your grade 1 injuries are the ones that, guys are out maybe a week or two. Grade 2 injuries can be a bit longer, as you can imagine, maybe about a month. And then your grade 3 injuries, that can be those that are several months that may even require surgery, kind of like what N'Golo Kante had back in October. That's majority of the injuries that you see in soccer. Besides ankle injuries, you're going to be seeing those muscle strains in the hamstring and the quad. And it can be very, very nagging because if guys go back too soon, they can kind of re-aggravate things and then they're out, another several weeks, maybe even months. So Chelsea's been really, really banged up and knocked around. It's going to be very interesting to see how they recover for the second half of the season with all these key injuries.
So with their main striker, Armando Broya, getting injured, like what's his recovery? Like I know like Milt said, like early August is what they're expecting, but is it like a long-term thing we need to be worried about?
For sure. ACL injuries, depending on the surgeon and how they recover folks, it's usually a good 6, 9, maybe even 12 months out. And even then when they come back, They have a couple of months of a kind of run-in period to kind of get their legs back under them. Coming back in August may be a bit ambitious. That's only 8 months from now. And unfortunately, when you tear your ACL, there's a physical component, obviously, that, it's a new ACL that's been put in there, a little bit more at risk. But there's also that mental capacity, right? So when guys go back, are they going to be a little less shy with some of those challenges and those 50-50 balls because they may be worried about some of these new injuries? And an ACL, as you know, has huge implications for somebody's career. A lot of people have had them and have come back and been very successful. It'd be very interesting to see how he does come late next summer.
So with all the medical advancements, like, do you think the recovery is sooner, or the players are just trying to come back sooner? Because I know, like, multiple players are like, ACL used to be a year, but we have seen in like other sports where players try to come in like 6 months in and they're okay-ish. They're not like great, but
right.
Like, is that like a medical advancement thing we're looking at out here, or is it like more of like a confidence for the player?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a very individual case by case basis. I mean, some players even come back 4 months after an ACL reconstruction, which is kind of freakish. But people have been able to do that. But it all depends on the player, depends on their rehabilitation protocol, their work ethic, how much at baseline they're just kind of fit, and then of course how much they put into it after surgery. I think 9 months ish is a very kind of good standard that most surgeons talk about for be able to come back, but it can be even up to 12, maybe even 15 months, depending on the situation, the circumstance, their position, etc.
Perfect.
Dr. Atanda, as a surgeon, do you think that 4 month thing is the use of, because we're seeing a lot more of internal braces being used in that? Do you think it that has increased the timeline for cruciate ligament reconstruction coverage?
Yeah. I mean, it depends again on the particular reconstruction, the fixation that's used, and the materials. But there have been a lot of new advancements, specifically things coming out of Harvard. I know some surgeons there that are doing some kind of groundbreaking surgical kind of trials where they're actually just repairing the ACL. They're not reconstructing it with new tissue. That's kind of in the clinical trial stage at this point. So it's not widespread. Not even a lot of professional athletes have access to that. So I do think in the next 5-ish years, there'll be a lot of changes and advancements of how we bring these players back. But now it's still kind of a long time, for your average player to be expected to come back to full form.
I think people should understand we're not robots. Like, players are not robots. You can't just like put in like things together.
For sure.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think medical advancements are always going to be there. Sweet. Let's jump on to the next big game. Liverpool, Aston Villa. Sorry, Aston Villa play at Liverpool. Mills, any updates on Liverpool, Aston Villa?
Because we just saw Liverpool play Man City in the Carabao Cup, and center back James Milner, he had a bit of a hamstring injury. He is questionable for this next game, and also we saw Liverpool was without Diogo Jota, Luis Diaz, and midfielder Arthur because of Knox. Diogo Jota has a calf injury. Luis Diaz has that MCL injury, and also Arthur has a thigh injury. These are relatively doubtful. These are the main injuries that are concerned. So, so Liverpool is kind of banged up. And for Aston Villa, they're relatively healthy. The only two are is Emiliano Martinez, the goalkeeper. He has a bit of a knock. He's doubtful, but he could still play. And Felipe Coutinho, he has a thigh quad injury, but he should feature.
Yeah, I think Coutinho, after he came back from Barcelona, has not looked the same. I think he hopes he never left Liverpool because he was so good with Liverpool. I think so the betting people are looking at this game more closer than we think. Liverpool is favored by like -135, which is closer than I think it should be, especially with their firepower. But I think, like you said, Mills, the injuries are playing a factor. Atanda, like any thoughts on Liverpool? Like, what's your team? I don't know your team. What's your team?
I'm a Chelsea man, actually.
Oh my God! You're a Chelsea guy.
I know.
Ghana filled with Chelsea fans.
Man City, baby, Man City.
I'll keep that to myself.
Okay, Dr. Anna, like one thing I have to clear. So Mills can be bought with money. He is a PSG fan.
Oh, come on.
He's a France fan because France has all the top players. Yep. and now Man City. I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps on to Newcastle next year. So let's go.
There we
No,
go,
Newcastle is
Newcastle.
what another Saudi baron, like I don't know, owning that team. I think it's going to be great. Well, I'm a United fan. You can probably see my red jersey. I had to I couldn't wear a jersey, but I'm just wearing a polo, like a hoodie
For
today.
sure.
So,
For
Yeah.
sure.
so yeah, guess like a common enemy is Liverpool. So tell us more about Liverpool, Dr. Atanda.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I would still pick them over Aston Villa. I mean, I think the quality is there. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to be said for the injuries. James Milner is a key player, but I would pick them over Aston Villa. I tend to side with the top 5 or 6 clubs for most matches. Maybe that's just jumping on the bandwagon, but I mean, we'll see how it plays out.
Okay. Sweet. So the other one, your fellow neighbors from London, Arsenal play another London club, West Ham United. Thoughts on that, Dr. Atanda?
Yeah, so you probably know where I'm going to go with this.
I know.
I'd probably pull for Arsenal. In terms of West Ham, I know RL. I don't know if you're going to talk about Aguerd from Morocco. He's still suffering.
He's injured, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a muscle strain of some sort that he was dealing with, carryover from the World Cup. But and he's a big time player, obviously. But I'd have to pull for Arsenal for this one.
Okay. I think it's going to be a draw. Mills, any major updates for Arsenal?
Yeah, as Dr. Atanda had mentioned, it's actually and it came out recently. He had a grade 1 quad tear.
Mm-hmm.
And he originally went back to Morocco, for the parade and everything. And he was back at, I believe he's back at West Ham now. And the turnaround time would have been too much for Boxing Day, so he is not going to feature in this match. That was the main one. That was the main injury right there. That's who they were dealing. That's who they were dealing with, and who they're going up against. Arsenal, they're so banged up. I was literally researching their injuries earlier today, and it was just amazing. There's so many, but of course the main one would be center back Takahiro Tomiyasu. He has a hamstring injury. He has hamstring injury. He did feature, but he was still didn't look like himself. Of course, we all know Gabriel Jesus with the MCL sprain. He's going to be out until late. Yeah, late February. And also another one that popped up, Emil Smith-Rowe. He actually had surgery for a growing injury, and that's going to keep him out for a while too.
Dr. Atanda, I feel like the common thread of kind of theme for all the injuries has been a strain, like a muscle strain or a hamstring strain, quad strain. Is that why is that? Is it a theme you're looking at, or is it just individual happens?
That's to be honest with you, that's professional sports in general. Obviously, when you have contact injuries, you tend to get your ankle sprains and rolling your ankles and things like that. Your non-contact injuries tend to be your big ligament injuries of the knee. But these strains, it's really just a sign of fatigue, dehydration, and just the overuse that these guys the toll that it takes on their bodies to play for their clubs, for their countries, 8, 9, 10 months out of the year. And even at their level, the eliteness of their training capacities and training regimens, their bodies just can't handle it,
and they get a massage every day.
Yeah. They get all sorts of treatment, as you know, and they're still, most of the guys aren't out for, several weeks to months, but they may miss a week or two with minor strains and pulls, and there's not a whole lot that you can do to really prevent that, unfortunately.
The reason I brought that up is if you look at the schedule for EPL, most teams have played either 14 or 15 games. That's not even half the season. So by now, most clubs are into their 19 to 20 games in. So to compensate to finish the season in May, early June, there's going to be back-to-back games. So for example, Brentford play Tottenham Monday on the 26th, and boom, they play the next game Friday. So every team is going to have 2 to 3 games in a span of a week. So I think it's going to come down to depth of the team. And I think especially with the strain you're talking about, muscle strain and I think it's going to play a big factor. And in my opinion, that's why the rich clubs are going to be top top teams no matter what. Man City's bench is probably better than the 20th team on the league.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
they'll be starting for some of the bottom of the table teams.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and that's going to bear itself out. I mean, guys playing 2 to 3 games a week just for the Premier League, not to mention Champions League, international friendlies, mini cups within the country. It adds up, and it takes a huge toll.
I think international friendlies should be done for like 6 months. I think the international friendlies are always this like Grinch kind of in the middle of the season, spoils everything. Like, for example, I think like maybe I'm kind of like petty out here. It affects Man United more than any other team. We'll be on a roll, 4 games winning streak. Boom, in October we get the international schedule, and then we come back, lose 2 to 3 games. I hate it. Happens every year. I don't know why. Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about my team, I have to go to my team since I mentioned them. Man United play Nottingham Forest. Any updates, Mills, injury wise? I know we have like a World Cup winner coming in and a World Cup runner up in the defense. Oh my God, I'm super stoked. Mills?
Yeah. Yes. As you said, yes, as you mentioned, congratulations to Argentina for winning the World Cup. Lisandro Martinez, he has some muscle fatigue. He may feature, but so that's questionable. Look for him. Rafael Varane from the mighty French team. He said they also have some muscle fatigue, some muscle overload. They said it says personal, but they should feature, but they're questionable. Also, Diego Dalot with a hamstring strain, and Jadon Sancho, he has lack of fitness. His fitness isn't where it be, so I don't think those two would feature. And for Nottingham Forest, the biggest one is Chiku Koyate. He actually had surgery on his right hamstring because he tore it. He tore it during the World Cup. He will be out until early March.
Okay, so you're telling me Man United has to win this game. So Dr. Tanda, so a lot of United players, like probably like all the top teams like Man City, United, like the team players like Varane, Martinez, like Bruno Fernandes, everyone went deep in the World Cup. Does that play a factor because they're like well-oiled machine without taking a break? Does that play a factor?
I mean, it does to some degree. Like I said before in the cast, that having time off can slow folks down. They kind of lose their rhythm. Obviously, Lisandro and Rafael were adversarial in the World Cup final, playing against each other. They had a good run, each playing 6 games.
Tension in the locker room.
It's very interesting. It'd be great to see how now that they're back in the Reds, the Man U camp, how they're going to interact with each other. But yeah, I mean, I think that it takes its toll. As you can see, they're now both nursing hamstring injuries. And it's hard to say. Some of these bigger clubs are going to have bigger players, and they're going to go to these World Cups and these other, Champions Leagues and things like that. And they're going to go longer. So they're almost at the detriment, the Man Cities and the Man U's and the Chelseas, whereas some of the smaller clubs, they don't have these big name players that are involved in some of these other things. So it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. But I do think there's a kind of a nod towards being better off, kind of keep that train moving, keep playing, keep fit as you kind of come right back into boxing day.
Yep. Well, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room right now. I am so happy Cristiano Ronaldo is not part of Man United this season. I am super happy. Like he's a United legend, no question. But I think he was a toxic influence in the whole locker room. And I think that was kind of like permeated into the Portugal locker room as well. Like a lot of players, like it was just weird. Like Bruno Fernandes wouldn't even say hi to him. Like there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
So I'm super happy. I think United's going to be better. I'm not going to say they're going to go and win everything, but I can see a top 4 finish. Maybe I'm just biased. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think United's going to be
possibly.
United are supposed to win. They're minus 340 to win, so they better win. I don't want to because United typically draw these dumb teams and then put pressure on ourselves. Cool. Like next one, our rivals, which I'm not a fan of, but it's Mill's team. We have to talk about it. Man City. Okay, how many EPL have you guys won? We have 20 EPL championships.
Low blow, dude. Low blow.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Man City play Leeds United. Mills, any injury updates there?
Yes, man. It said, of course, we also have a lot of people returning from the World Cup. Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva. They were available as subs for the Carabao match, And but we didn't have the goalkeeper. We didn't have the goalkeeper Ederson. He was match fit, but he didn't feature, and he wasn't selected for it. Julian Alvarez, I believe, should return. It should return. He got some time off to recover from muscle strain and stuff like that. I think so. I think Man City is relatively thing. Only one would be Ruben Diaz, who has a hamstring, and also Calvin Phillips, who is not really good with his fitness right now. They're going to be out until like January. And Leeds United is just full. It's just full of injuries. Tyler Adams from USA, he has a red card. I believe he will be out for suspension. And Archie Gray, he has an ankle injury. Luis Sinestra, and he has a foot injury. And also Patrick Bamford, he has a growing injury, so they probably won't feature.
So how? Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
I was going to say, okay, Gundogan, the German national from Turkey, is nursing some muscle issues from Man City also.
Yes, he actually got injured. He actually got injured during the last match, and they say he could feature, but I think but it says they said it was a hamstring strain from what I'm
reading. Man City has 2 bench strengths, like they can feature 3 teams, so they're fine. I'm not too worried about Man City. I think they're going to rock and roll, beat Leeds United. I don't see an upset happening there. Dr. Atanda, let's talk about Mills's future fan team, Newcastle United. So Newcastle play Leicester. Newcastle United, Leicester City. Thoughts on that game?
I mean, that's a close one. Historically, Leicester's had their run in the past several years when they won the title kind of out of nowhere. I've always kind of pulled for them. I'm going to have to pick Newcastle. It'll probably be a close game, but I'll pick Newcastle winning. Leicester winning this one over Newcastle.
Okay, so this is kind of like the betting people are kind of like neutral on this game, 50-50. So maybe like 55-45. Newcastle are plus 120 to win. Leicester City are plus 220 to win. And a draw is not a possibility. It is a possibility, but Vegas doesn't think it's going to happen. So that's interesting. So let's kind of run through the other games. Mills, I'm going to start with you. Crystal Palace versus Fulham. Any thoughts?
Say Crystal Palace versus Fulham.
Yep.
I'm looking at this. They're both relatively heavy with just like minor knocks for Crystal Palace and for Fulham. When I looked, they're pretty thing as well too, except Niskins Cabana, who has the Achilles tendon injury. Okay. I'm going to take Crystal Palace. I like Crystal Palace in this one.
Okay, that's good. That is good. Dr. Atanda, your thoughts on Everton and Wolverhampton? That's a tough game. That
is a tough one to pick. Oh my God, that's a coin flip.
I think it'd be pretty close. I'm not as familiar with Wolves as I should be compared to Everton, so I probably would side with Everton to win this one. But you know those games where it's a toss up. You don't know if you're putting money down. You're like, whoa, makes you kind of hurt in your stomach a little bit.
Everton's playing home, and I think that's the only reason I like. And one of my good friends is an Everton fan, so I have to root for Everton. So the last game, which we haven't talked about yet, is Southampton versus Brighton. Thoughts on that, Mills?
Oh man, Brighton said as we saw didn't Brighton just Brighton just got into that weird penalty kick out in the Carabao Cup. That was them, right? Yeah, they played. They played hard against Charleston. Yeah, they are. But they barely squeaked. I think they barely squeaked out that win. And from what I saw, I watched that match. I don't like what I saw from them, so I'm gonna have to go with Southampton, even though Romeo Lavia is out. I've got to go. Hot pick, Southampton.
Okay, is that going to be your upset of the week, Southampton?
That's the upset of the week.
Okay, that's Mills. Okay,
underdog of the week.
Dr. Atanda, what's your upset of the week?
God. I mean, as Mills was talking, I was kind of jumping on that bandwagon. I was like, well, man, he's got a good point. You know what? You heard it here first. I'm going to side with Mills on this one.
Wow. Southampton's go.
You
okay,
heard it
you
here
guys
first.
Hey, my
Put your
upset
money down now.
Okay, I know about that. My upset pick with the week is Tottenham's gonna lose to Brentford. Either that's gonna. I think that's either that or the game's gonna be a tie. But I think I'm leaning like maybe like a 2-1 Brentford. Tottenham, a lot of English players. They're kind of like, I don't know if they have like that zest to come back and bounce like a Messi or a Ronaldo in the past. So I don't know. Something tells me Brentford's going to win this game. I'm going to pick Brentford. That's going to be my upset of the week.
You got to trust your gut.
I know.
Oh my God.
Sweet. Any final thoughts?
Even if it's wrong, that's a
doesn't
lock.
matter.
Tottenham
doesn't
is a
matter,
lock, dude.
Okay. Okay. We'll see about that. Dr. Atanda, any final thoughts for this week's show? It's been awesome. Like, we're going to keep doing this every week, like once or twice, depending on the season. Any final thoughts for this week?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it'll be interesting to see how the World Cup layover plays a role into the kind of, re-entry of the season, if you will. I think I don't really have a firm stance either way, whether or not I think it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it will play out in the coming week or two as to kind of who was just kind of laying around and maybe just training on their own versus who was really banging out in the World Cup and playing. It'd be very interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yep. Mills?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Boxing Day. I love all these matches. Not only is Man City going to win the Carabao Cup, they're also going to just wreck shop against Nottingham Forest. You heard it.
That's probably going to happen. You're right. Imagine Boxing Day if England would have won. That would have been like the biggest day.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. That would be great. Well, you know what? It's never going to come home. England's never going to win the World Cup. So good luck, everybody. Well, that's it for the show today. We'll talk more EPL moving forward. We're going to like plug in some fantasy stuff starting next week. And then we'll try to get in more betting aspect as well. As always, Dr. Atanda, thanks a lot for doing all the videos about injuries. And we're excited to learn more about the science aspect of sports, not just soccer, but in general, like what happens in the body. Mills, thanks again for all being like the sports reporter for our show. Good luck, everybody. Have fun. Merry Christmas.